Hey everybody, this is Lyra with Villa by EXP. With the way the market's kind of changing a bit, we've seen a lot more first-time home buyers stepping into this market, which is great, right? That's what you want to see, people stepping out of renting and starting that beautiful journey of home ownership and starting to build their equity. Well, the process can be a little overwhelming. There's so many different steps, so many different terms to learn, different people that are part of the team for the home buying process that you have to kind of learn what their role is to help you. So I wanted to touch on those and kind of go over them a little bit and answer some of those frequently asked questions that we get as agents from our first time home buyers, right? Now keep in mind that this is for the state of Florida. It may seem a little similar to some of the other states. It may be the exact same as some states, but I do know that we do things a little bit different than some of, like New York, Texas, things along those lines. So just keep that in mind while you're viewing this, right? Now, the very first step that we always recommend is having a conversation with a lender. If you do not have a great lender, always ask your agent. They will have one, two, three, maybe five to recommend to you, depending on what your situation is. Each lender is different, right? Some of them have different programs. Some of them are brokers where they can find you, they can shop for you essentially. Some of them have, are just working with particular companies and they have their, special abilities that they can do for you. And then, of course, there's also the banks. I will say that a local mortgage broker with a company that focuses on loans is definitely something that agents are looking for over an out-of-state lender or a bank. Things can get a little finicky, complicated, whatever the word that you want to go with to describe how things can get with a non-local lender, right? So things like Rocket Mortgage, Quicken Loans, those can be complicated. You can plug in your numbers and they can spit you out a letter, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily what's gonna happen for the sale, the purchase of your home. So you want to make sure that you're using a reputable, right? Lender, and if it's local, that actually adds a lot of weight, to your offer, right? And it's important because your agent has to be able to communicate with this person, which is where we have issues with like the banks. We all work 24/7 essentially. I was just making jokes. The only days we really get off are Christmas and Thanksgiving. So we really bust our butts, and it can be really difficult when we're trying to reach the lender in times of need. We need an updated pre-approval letter. We want, it helps your case when like our lender will call the listing agent in regards to your offer when we submit it. Now that adds so much value, especially if the lender's done business with the other side before, right? There's so many pieces here. Well, it can be very difficult to get banks to do that. And then non-local lenders, sometimes they don't have the connections down here. Time zone changes. They're definitely easier to work with than the banks, but sometimes they don't really know the local laws, so it can really, it can add a couple hiccups, but that's something that we can generally overcome. All right, so first step is working with a lender, okay? Now, they're going to go over numbers like cash to close. That's going to be how much money that you need to close on the house, right? And that's going to vary depending on the home, your pre-approval, your DTI, which is debt to income ratio, right? It's going to depend on like taxes and insurance for the home. If there's an HOA, there's so many different factors here that can really impact that. So those are going to be things that the lender is going to really be able to work with you on. So any money questions, that goes to your lender, right? We can kind of, we can answer some questions like some mild ones about how much the HOA is, how much the taxes were for the last year. But if you really want to get finite and like detailed about it, definitely talk to your lender about it, okay? Another person that's really going to be, you know, crucial to the transaction is the title rep, but they don't come into play until you do get under contract. They're going to be the ones reaching out to you asking for your social security number, you know, your full legal name, a copy of your driver's license, all that fun stuff, just to make sure that you are who you say you are, and that's who is purchasing the house. Okay. So don't be scared when that comes in down the road. Usually in the state of Florida, the seller does pick the title because they are making, you know, they are paying those expenses. So that, you know, isn't really something that you have to worry about too much. But so you have your cash to close, and then an additional, in the additional expenses category, you're going to have the appraisal, right? If you're going with a loan, you do have to have an appraisal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. You do have to have, you don't have to, but it's always recommended to have an inspection, okay? I never recommend buying a home without an inspection, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. Absolutely not. Inspections can range from, you know, $350 to $500, depending on what inspector you use. Your agent should have an amazing couple inspectors for you to choose from. And then there's something called a WDO inspection, which is wood destroying organisms. That's going to be not just termites, but it's also going to be mold, right? Those aren't too costly. They're definitely on the cheaper end. Again, agent or inspector should have somebody to recommend for that. Keep in mind, if you're purchasing a property with a septic tank, with a well, or with a pool, these all come with you know, opportunities for additional inspections. It's entirely up to you, right? But you know, there can definitely be benefits to getting those inspected. Yes, it's going to be more costly. The last thing you want is to close on your home and then all the toilets back up into your brand new house with all your boxes of furniture in it because you did not have a septic inspection done, right? So those are some of those additional expenses that can add up. The appraiser will go out there after the inspection period is complete. That's your, the inspection period is your opportunity really to negotiate and to back out of the deal while getting your escrow money back, which is something else we'll touch on shortly. So the appraiser will go out and they'll estimate the value of the home based off of the homes that have sold locally in the area. And whatever that value is that the appraiser sets is what the lender is going to loan you for the home. So that's going to be something that can, you know, come into play and something you need to discuss with your, you know, your buyer's agent essentially to see, is the home expected to appraise? Is it not going to appraise possibly? And now keep in mind that as agents, we're going to provide our best estimate on it, but the appraisers, sometimes they have their own system that just does its own thing, and sometimes we can all be very surprised by what those numbers come in, but we will absolutely do our best to make sure that you're fully prepared for whatever that looks like, right? So the escrow amount, right, is your, we call it the skin in the game, right? The money that you're putting to the side. It does go towards your closing costs, but it's the money you're putting aside saying, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, if I default on my contract in any way, this money will come to you for taking the house off the market for X amount of days, right? Now, if something comes up during the inspection period and you guys try to negotiate and you can't come to terms, then you can back out and absolutely receive that escrow money back. If you lose loan denial, right, within your loan approval period, then you absolutely can back out and, well, you know, at that point you can no longer purchase the home. You get a letter from your lender stating that you have loan denial, and then submit that over, and then you will receive your escrow money back. The only way you really lose that is if you have extended past these contingency periods and decide to back out of the home, maybe day of closing, you're defaulting for some reason. And these are things that you're going to want to talk over with your agent, because it all varies what a default looks like depending on the particular contract, right, per home. So that's something that you're going to want to keep in mind. And then the survey is going to usually be the last thing that's done here in Florida. The cost for the survey will range. It absolutely depends on how big the property is. Sometimes the seller will have done a recent survey when they purchased the home. If they've made no structural changes, like added a shed, extended, you know, the lanai, or added a fence or anything like that, then you can save yourself some, a couple dollars and use that survey if the seller will permit you to. So really, those are the big things that will pop up during the home buying process that people have a lot of questions on. The average home, average contract to purchase a home down here is between 21 days for cash generally, to 45 days for VA. The real average is about 30 though, is what you'll see from contract to close at that point, but it can vary. Sometimes the seller needs a little extra time, and your way to win the contract is by giving them an extended closing time. Sometimes if your lender can pull it off and you want to do it in a shorter amount of time because the seller's in a hurry to get the deal closed, then you can always negotiate that, as well as just make sure absolutely that your team, which is your agent, your lender, are able to make that happen for you. That's kind of really it. Once you get that pre-approval letter from your lender, you've had that conversation, they'll shoot it over to your buyer's agent, who then can set you up on a search and you start looking for homes. We have a pretty cool portal that sends it out with your name on it. You can make like adjustments at favorite homes, put notes, discard homes, and that allows us to see exactly what's happening on that end. So we can get to know that maybe, you don't like the open floor plan, or you're not a big fan of carpet in every room. That gives us the opportunity to get to know you a little more without having to physically go and see all these homes. Gas is expensive. So we get to work together. That lets us work together in helping you set up homes to go take a look at. After that, let's say you find the house that you like, we go ahead, we write up an offer. Things we're going to need to know are your offer price, right? That escrow amount money, the escrow that we talked about, how long of an inspection period that you'd like to do. Typically right now we're seeing about 10 days. The shorter the period of inspection, the better, or like the stronger the offer typically, but you'll want to allow yourself time to have a solid inspector come out there and to do any additional inspections, or even possibly get quotes. Just had a situation where we had to have a roofer come out, and we had to extend the inspection period for it because we needed to have a certified roofer take a look and provide quotes to make sure that we were all able to work together and move forward on the transaction. So these are things to absolutely keep in mind. We'll need to know if there's a contingency to sell a home, which if you're a first-time home buyer, typically that's not the case. So these are just factors to kind of consider. Speak to your agent about it. We are seeing more opportunities for seller concessions, where they are providing cash back to help you towards your closing costs right now. That's definitely more common than it was about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So that's definitely something you can also speak to your agent about, but they should be able to explain the concerns regarding if the house doesn't appraise, and things like that, as far as how the purchase price can be worked out so that the seller and the buyer can come to an agreement. So that's kind of really all I wanted to touch on. Again, if you have any questions, if I missed anything, feel free to leave a comment. You can always reach out to me at 321-806-6712 or Lyra at villarealtors.com. That's Leira at VILLAREALTORS.com. Okay. Hope something in here helped you guys, and I look forward to seeing some lovely new homeowners out there. All right, good luck.